The arrogance radiating from my husband inside that crowded courtroom was suffocating. He leaned over the wooden table and whispered that I would never touch a single dollar of his money again. His new mistress sat right beside him, smiling broadly as if she had already won a grand prize. When I silently slid a sealed white envelope across the table toward the bench, the entire room grew quiet. The judge ripped open the paper, scanned the contents, and suddenly burst into a loud laugh. It was not a mocking sound, but rather the genuine laughter of someone witnessing a brilliant cosmic joke. My husband turned pale while his mistress stopped smiling entirely. My name is Nora, and at 42 years old, I was watching the complete collapse of my marriage. For nearly 2 decades, I believed that Julian and I were building a genuine future together. We met when we were young, back when he only possessed a borrowed truck and a dream of starting a construction firm. I worked exhausting double shifts as a dedicated hospital therapist to support us while he worked every single weekend. We possessed nothing back then, but we shared real laughter. As the business expanded into a massive enterprise, Julian began to change in ways that I could not ignore. Wealth altered his personality slowly, like rust destroying a fine piece of machinery over time. He stopped viewing me as an equal partner and began treating me like an old piece of furniture. I tried desperately to salvage our bond through counseling, but a marriage cannot survive when only one person tries. 9 months before the hearing, Julian became strangely secretive with his phone and started taking unlisted trips. Massive financial charges appeared for luxury hotels and expensive jewelry that I never received. Whenever I questioned him, he grew deeply offended and demanded absolute trust. Soon after, I discovered the name of the other woman, an ambitious person named Tessa who wanted my life. The truth finally exposed itself on a rainy Tuesday evening after my long hospital shift. I spotted the truck of Julian parked outside an upscale restaurant located 40 minutes away from our home. Through the glass window, I saw them holding hands and laughing with an intimacy that we had lost years ago. I did not scream or cause a scene. I simply walked back to my vehicle in silence. When I eventually confronted Julian, he did not even bother to deny the ongoing affair. He looked at me coldly and stated that we both deserved a fresh start, completely erasing 20 years of devotion. 2 weeks later, he officially filed for divorce, and his aggressive attorneys began hiding assets. The financial disclosures they submitted made absolutely no sense, as millions seemed to vanish overnight. While reviewing the bank statements, I discovered a massive transfer of $80,000 from our joint account. Julian claimed that this money did not exist, but the paper trail proved otherwise. I stared at the numbers until they blurred, realizing that something far bigger was happening beneath the surface. I immediately called my attorney, Camilla, who warned me not to confront him about the missing funds. Every evening in my small temporary apartment, I surrounded myself with stacks of financial records. Patterns began to emerge, showing frequent monthly transfers to mysterious companies called Stonebridge Consulting and Apex Development. Public records showed that these entities did not actually exist anywhere. The deeper I looked, the more I realized that the affair was merely a symptom of a much larger deception. Camillo arranged a secret meeting with a former accountant of the company named Arthur. We met at a quiet coffee shop downtown where the older man spoke in hushed tones. He explained that Julian had been secretly moving large sums of money for years without proper authorization. Arthur had raised concerns back then, but Julian told him to mind his own business, prompting the accountant to resign. The mystery deepened when an anonymous envelope appeared at my doorstep containing copies of wire transfers. These documents showed massive sums moving directly from hidden accounts into bank accounts belonging to Tessa. The financial manipulation was staggering, and it was clear that Julian was violating the law. Camilla informed me that the court had granted our request for an official, deeper financial discovery process. The next morning, we met with an expert forensic investigator named Vivienne. She spent hours analyzing the confusing web of transactions before looking up with a calm expression. Vivienne explained that the fraud was actually incredibly sloppy because Julian believed that nobody would ever look closely. His supreme arrogance had caused him to make massive mistakes, leaving a clear trail of his illegal activities. Camilla asked me how far I wanted to take this investigation, warning me about the potential criminal consequences for Julian. I looked out the window and realized that I did not want simple revenge, I just wanted the absolute truth. I spent the entire weekend organizing every single piece of evidence into a clear, undeniable timeline. The facts spoke loudly for themselves without needing any emotional embellishment. That brings us back to the tense courtroom where the judge was currently reading my compiled timeline. The initial amusement on the face of the judge faded into intense concentration as he reviewed the illegal transfers. Julian shifted uncomfortably in his leather chair while the confidence of Tessa began to crack completely. The judge adjusted his glasses and looked directly at my husband, demanding immediate clarification. The attorney of Julian quickly leaned forward, nervously offering to clear up any minor misunderstandings. The judge did not look impressed and ordered an immediate, comprehensive audit of all business accounts. He explicitly stated that federal authorities might need to examine these specific transactions. For the first time since this painful process began, Julian looked absolutely terrified as the reality of his situation set in. There were no dramatic handcuffs that afternoon, but the power dynamic had shifted permanently. As we walked out into the sunshine, Julian refused to look at me, and Tessa was furiously typing on her phone. They left the building in separate vehicles, the grand illusion of their future completely shattered by the truth. I stood on the concrete steps and felt a profound sense of relief wash over me. Months later, the final divorce settlement granted me everything that Julian had tried so desperately to hide from me. More importantly, the legal investigation forced him to properly account for his financial crimes, costing him his business empire. I now live in a beautiful, quiet home filled with peace rather than deception. The journey was incredibly painful, but it taught me a vital lesson about my own inner strength. I realized that you can lose a marriage without losing yourself in the process. Arrogance always creates blind spots, and the truth will eventually find a way into the light. I am no longer grieving the woman I used to be because I have become someone far stronger. The future is finally mine to write, built on a solid foundation of honesty, independence, and self-respect.